It's time that we take Ascension very, very seriously so that we can all begin to move consciously in that direction. Hi, I'm Saratoga Ocean, and I work together with an interdimensional, interuniversal, and extraterrestrial force known as Telstar, along with Archangel Michael. So, as we can all see, things on planet Earth are getting crazier, more chaotic, and more unpredictable by the day. So it occurred to me the other day, we really need to get focused on ascension at a much higher level. So in this video, I want to dive deep into the true meaning of ascension and also dispel some of the myths surrounding it so that we don't get trapped into something that's not really true and lose our way in terms of true ascension. Now, before I dive deep into this topic, I want to share with you really quick a couple of ways that I have to support you in your ascension journey beyond what I share with you in these videos. And the first one is my Cosmic Journey private membership. The central focal point of this membership is what I call the Ascension Path, the 5 stages of the Ascension Path. We have an entire beautiful group of people who are on this journey together. Plus, we have monthly themes. There is loads of content in the form of videos, podcasts, downloadable PDFs, none of which I share anywhere else. I only share this information in my private membership. So I will be opening it around the spring equinox in March. And if you would like to join us, I will put a link to my waitlist in the description below. And if you get on my waitlist, I'll send you info as we get closer, and then you can make a decision if that's something that you yourself would like to embark upon. Now, the second top thing I want to share with you to support your ascension journey is what you've heard me talk about before, which is this HEALY quantum frequency device. And I just want to share a couple of things real quick that I realized as a result of using this. I've been using it for almost a year now, and I actually have had so many revelations about evolution in general since I've been using it. As a result of using it, I realized that we spend so much of our lives dealing with limiting patterns and beliefs. We can spend a lifetime struggling with the same patterns, the same limiting habits, the same junk, right, that we carry around, and it's like you think you've gotten through something and then it comes back again. So I actually used to think that dealing with all that stuff directly was part of our evolution. But I see it differently now. And this is related to something that Archangel Michael said to me quite some time ago, actually way back. And I know it's funny how I keep sharing these little stories with you guys lately, but they just keep coming to mind as more and more clears out of my consciousness. And I'm understanding more and more things they've said to me all along that I did not fully comprehend. That's all the result of using this quantum frequency device. So one day, Archangel Michael said to me, very interesting, he said, "Why would you be any different here," meaning on Earth, "than you are in the rest of the universe?" What he meant was, this is in the context of the conversation, what he meant was, why would you be different here than you are at the highest possible level of who you really are in the universe? Why is it different here? And he just said it very offhandedly, just posing it as a question, more of a rhetorical question. Well, I feel kind of foolish to tell you what my response to that was, but I'll share it with you anyway. So I looked at him and this is like almost embarrassing that I could have been this off the mark. But I said, well, you don't understand. Things are different here. I said this to him. I swear, I literally said this to him. I said, you don't understand. Things are different here. I don't know how to explain it because you're not here. This is what I said to him. Literally, you're not here, but I'm here. And I'm just want to explain that the reason I'm not here the way I am in the rest of the universe is because things are different here. Now, oh my gosh, I look back on so many moments I've had like this, and they're so loving and generous. Archangel Michael, Telstar, they don't confront me ever. They don't ever challenge anything I've said. It's just kind of like he puts this thing out and I sit with it literally for years, you guys, for years. And I think about it and I think, why? Yeah, why? That's kind of weird. But see, I had an excuse. I thought the way things are on planet Earth was my excuse for not being who I really am while I'm here. Okay, now you might be saying, what does this have to do with Healy, Saratoga? Well, I'll explain. What was I talking about when I said things are different here? What I was talking about is all of those patterns and limiting beliefs and traumas and all the stuff that we acquire through life here. It's actually all in the form of energy and frequencies, right? If you distill it down to its purest form, it all exists at the level of frequency. And it's all sitting there in our bioenergetic field of consciousness. And because we live through it and we refer to it as our life, we start to identify with it. You can spend your entire life dealing with that stuff. And that's what I used to think, oh yeah, well, that's how we evolve. We transmute it, we deal with it, right? I had the most profound revelation the other day, you guys, and it was related to that question that Archangel Michael posed to me many years ago. Why would you be any different here than you are in the rest of the universe? What is that difference? Why is it different? It's different because of what I just shared with you. What I realized is I thought to myself, because the more I've used the Healy, the more this stuff clears away, the more I can see, the more I can comprehend, the more I understand. And it was like, almost felt like a path was illuminated in front of me where I could see what ascension is really supposed to be, what evolution is really supposed to be. It's not supposed to have anything to do with that junk. This is what led me to the revelation when all this stuff was cleared away and I can see more and more, I can comprehend more and more. And I saw this, oh my gosh, I get it. I totally get it. So just to close this little piece of what I was talking about, if you want to know more about the Healy frequency device or you want to get one, I'm putting a link in the description. You can go check it out there. We can chat about it if you want to later on, but for now, let's get into the main focus of today's video. So I want to do two things. I want to start by dispelling some of the myths that surround ascension. Let's begin with what I would consider a faulty paradigm. And that would consist of the belief that ascension is something that happens to us. It's something that is enacted upon us from an outside force, a force that is basically invisible. And it's also often said that ascension happens very suddenly, out of the blue, when we don't expect it, so we better get ready, things like that. There seems to be this recurring narrative about ascension, that there are the chosen ones and nobody knows who they are. You'll find out at the last minute. And this causes a whole lot of stress for people because then people get worried about their family members, their friends, their pets. Because see, then it devolves into, well, there are requirements to be a chosen one. There are requirements to ascend. This is not a new narrative. This narrative comes and goes over the years. We had a very similar thing happening a few decades ago, which I'll get into in a little bit. And of course, nothing happened. And what I notice about these peaks of ascension narratives, when they show up and everybody's talking about it, and then it doesn't happen, and then it just kind of dies off until everyone forgets, and then the next one happens, and then that dies off until everyone forgets, and then the next one happens and it dies off. It comes in waves. Sometimes they're associated with specific dates. Sometimes it's just nowadays it's just the trend on social media, right? So it's not to say that ascension is not real. It's not to say that we don't need to focus on it, because we absolutely do. But we need to clear away so many of the beliefs that surround it. Because many of these beliefs are actually resting on ancient religious beliefs. I would just put it in two different categories. We have the New Age version of ascension, and then we have the religious version, which, let's just say, the Christianity version. And essentially it all boils down to the good guys get saved, the good guys win, the good guys go to a much better place, to a much better realm, and the bad guys end up in hell or some version of hell. So it's all about being judged based on certain things. So let's just take a look at what are the things that you have to do in order to be able to ascend, to be saved, whatever the word is, in terms of Christianity or maybe other religions too. You have to go to church when you're supposed to go to church. You have to follow the dogma. You have to believe in the dogma. You probably want to be beating yourself up for being a sinner, being guilty for being a sinner, feeling the guilt of being a sinner. That's often referred to as being humble. Guys, that's not humility. That's like self-abuse. Humility is a different topic. I'm not going to get into it here, but it's not feeling guilty and beating yourself up for being a bad person and a sinner. That's not being humble. You have to follow certain religious holidays, certain religious rituals. It's always good to have religious symbols around your home. And most importantly, you must believe in the religion's God. Have you guys noticed that all the religions have different versions of God? They have their own God, and then they fight with each other, and oftentimes have murdered, slaughtered each other for having the wrong God. It's kind of like, my God's better than your God, and if you don't believe in my God, I'm going to kill you. You know, many religions have seen the solution for the unbelievers to be, let's just murder them. Let's just get rid of them. That's been their solution in many, many cases. Okay, so that would be what the good guys have to do. So let's talk about, what do the bad guys have to do? How do you get judged as a bad person that doesn't get to be saved and go to heaven and all of that? How do you get judged as the bad person in a religion that's going to end up in some version of hell? Okay, so bad guys, number 1, following the wrong religion. Number 2, don't follow any religion. You're automatically bad. Don't believe in the church's God. You don't read the prescribed holy books. And basically, for the most part, if you think for yourself, you're a bad person who's probably going to end up in hell. I know these are broad generalizations, but I'm really just trying to make a point of how all of this mythology has been set up in such a way that it literally impedes our ability to ascend and evolve. Because if we believe in this stuff, we're sort of like in the wrong ballpark. You're not in the realm of ascension at all. You're in a different realm. You're in a realm where there's an invisible God who is judging you and is going to decide, without your knowledge, with no instructions other than follow the religious dogma and have the go-between between you and God, which is the church. And you're stuck in that situation, and you can't see past it because you believe that's the way to get to your version of heaven or whatever heaven is for you. And here's one way that to me, it makes it easy to see that this can't be real. And here's why, because you can be the nicest person in the world. You can be a wonderful human being in every way. But according to a lot of religions, if you are in the wrong religion or if you don't follow their rules, you're going to hell. I remember something like this about the Catholic Church. I don't know if the Catholic Church still says this, but there was a time when their dogma was even a tiny baby, if that baby was not baptized, it was going to hell. If it died, let's say you had a baby that didn't get baptized and something unfortunate happened and the child dies at 6 months old. Well, it's going to hell. And hell means eternal suffering forever. You never get out. And their position was, tough luck, kid. That's the way it goes. That's the way the cookie crumbles, right? When you hear stuff like this, you're like, no, this is not evolution. This is not ascension. This is just dogma and judgment and whatever it is. So everything I just shared, that sort of forms the ancient historical underpinnings, the let's say more deeply established underpinnings in society of a religious version of ascension, where you get saved, where you get to go to heaven, where you avoid hell because you are judged positively in the eyes of that religion's God. But now we have what I call the New Age version, the modern version of exactly the same scenario, just with different aspects, different rules. And, we heard about this in the last few years with the Earth splitting into 2 planets, right? There was going to be the new Earth, there'd be the old Earth. The good people would end up in the new Earth, which would equate to heaven. And the bad people would stay on the old Earth, which was, who knows, maybe going to blow up in nuclear war. Terrible things were going to happen. It was going to be a hellish situation. So I want to share with you briefly some of the things that I have heard specifically said about what we need to do right now if we want to ascend. Because we're told by some that ascension is going to happen very suddenly. No one knows when it's going to happen. And you have to do certain things so that you can be one of the chosen ones who gets to go to the new Earth. And with this version of things, it's a lot looser. It's not quite so dogmatic like it is with religions, but it's a similar concept. So number 1, you must be vegan. Vegan is like required. Some people say you shouldn't have any metal in your body. If you have any metal at all, you need to get it out of your body. That would include things like silver fillings or whatever else. You just need to get rid of all the metal in your body. I think they were saying that when ascension was going to be the result of a solar flash. It seems like that's kind of gone by the wayside because that didn't happen, and that narrative seems to have died off a little bit. So I don't know if the metal thing still applies, but that was one of the things that was said we needed to do if we wanted to ascend. And of course, there are certain rituals and practices that are very important if you want to be on the good side and if you want to be able to ascend. Because remember, in this paradigm, ascension is something that happens to you from an outside force that you cannot see and you don't know when it's going to happen. It's a sudden event where you suddenly end up in the new Earth and everything's wonderful. And I do know I'm generalizing here because there's no way I can cover every single version of ascension that's out there. So I am just giving you a general view so that you can mainly understand the general paradigm of how it's looked at. So in this more New Age view of things, it's always good to engage in certain practices or beliefs like astrology, crystals, oracle cards, meditation, things like that. Now, before you guys jump all over me, I like all of those things too. But those are just support. Those are really just tools to support your evolution. They're not the driving force, of course. But there are people who want to judge whether you're going to be a good person who ends up on the new Earth based on how much you engage in these types of practices. It also helps if you believe in extraterrestrials, or it helps if you believe in certain narratives, storylines that you see online that say if you believe such and such, you will be among the chosen ones, you will ascend. So in this scenario, who are the bad guys? Who are the people who aren't going to ascend according to this scenario? Well, they would be people who don't believe in any of that stuff, think it's all crazy, think meditation is dumb, think extraterrestrials don't exist, think crystals are stupid, think you're weird because maybe you've had psychic experiences or metaphysical experiences. People who think all that stuff is weird, well, they're just not going to ascend because they're just not with it. If they're very religious, they're not going to ascend. And also, people who follow exactly what the government says are probably not going to be in the new earth either. See, that's the paradigm. So you can see when you look at all the things I just mentioned, that it's chaos, right? It's absolute chaos. You have all the religions who don't agree with each other, who have some version of God will judge who's good and who's bad. The bad people go to hell, the good people go to heaven. The bad people end up in hell, the good people get saved. And then you have the modern New Age version, which is just as chaotic, although not organized. Religions are organized, they've been around for a long time. New Age isn't organized at all. So it's just sort of like a big free-for-all of judgment. These people are going to ascend, these people aren't, these people are good, these people are bad. Ascension means you end up in the new earth as if by magic or something like that. So that's an overview of how much mythology surrounds the topic of ascension. We have a lot of chaos, we have a lot of worry, we have a lot of frustration, anxiety, a whole lot of stuff, but it's just very, very chaotic, and also a lot of fighting and a lot of people judging each other in all of these different realms about who's going to make it and who isn't. So just for the sake of simplicity, let's separate this into those simple two categories, the religious category and what I'll call the New Age category. And there are infinite variations on everything I've said. What I've shared with you here is by no means complete. But here's the thing. There is actually no evidence that any of this stuff is correct. There's no evidence at all, because none of these claims have ever actually happened. Now, I want to point something out that might be a little bit controversial, but I'm sure you guys can handle a little bit of controversy, right? Let's talk about the modern, what I'll call New Age version of Ascension, the New Earth, the planets splitting into two Earths, and all of that stuff. Here's what I've observed over the years I've been doing this work, because I've been doing this work for a long time. There was a time way back when there was this peak interest in, we're all going to go to the fourth dimension, we're all going to go to 4D. And it was the good guys were going to go there and the bad guys weren't, and it was going to be sudden. It was the same exact story that we're hearing now, only now it's 5D. So we're hearing exactly the same story. Well, I have to tell you a funny story. Okay, Archangel Michael does have a sense of humor. And this was when I was doing a lot of live channeled events. So one time, I don't remember who this group was, but there was like a whole group of very spiritual New Age people that wanted to have a channeling for them with him. So this is really funny. You have to understand, he does have a sense of humor. So he came into the room, and this was back when I used to actually record all of these events because I didn't remember anything that was said because I'm a full body channel, so I don't remember what happens. Somebody either has to tell me or I have to have a recording of it. So what he did, these people were all sitting there, very spiritually oriented, very, very New Age. And he was just joking with them. He said, but they didn't know he was joking. He said, this thing about everybody going to 4D and how that's imminent and it's going to, and they're like, oh yes, because these guys all believed that they were going to go there. They were definitely on the right track and they were going to end up in 4D. So he said, well, I have some bad news for you. He said, it already happened and you didn't make it. And the people that shared this with me told me it was like you could hear a pin drop. People were like in complete shock. Like, oh my God, we didn't make it. And then of course, right away he told them, he said, look, I'm just kidding with you. And then he made his point that this is not how it works. But I think that was so funny because it's kind of like that now, isn't it? Isn't it funny how there was this peak stuff where everybody's talking about ascension, ascension, ascension. Remember, I'm speaking about it in the context of it happens to you. That's not where I'm coming from. But this is what the mythology is. And it was imminent any day, any time. And there's all this anxiety. And what about my family? And are they going to make it? And you guys, I'm sure you guys heard all of it, right? What I'm trying to say is this is a false belief. It doesn't work like this. I'm going to share with you how it does work. But for right now, I just want to share with you, this is a false belief. We don't have any evidence that this is true. Because every single time this is brought up, nothing happens. And the only way to continue to believe it is you would ultimately have to conclude that it happened and you didn't make the cut because you're still here. Think about it, you guys. Things are not good on planet Earth right now. Things are really, really bad. I mean, we're talking seriously bad. If we believed that 3 years ago, 4 years ago, ascension was imminent, it was going to happen, the good people were going to be in the new earth, all that stuff, right? What would we conclude at this point in time? We would have to conclude, well, kind of looks like none of us really made it. Or a more sane conclusion would be, I guess that wasn't exactly correct. Because we're all still here. No one's gone anywhere. And it always ends up this way, you guys. Every time this stuff happens, no one goes anywhere. No one comes through the clouds. The ETs don't come in their spaceships and take everybody up. It never happens. You see? And as long as we continue to believe this, we're stuck. We are going to be stuck. I mean, we have been told, because of the internet, we've been told about so many different saviors that are supposed to come and save us, right? Well, we know Jesus has been waiting around for over 2,000 years, according to Christians, still isn't here. The ETs are supposed to save us. The galactic this, that, and the other thing are supposed to come and save us. The light always wins. We've heard that a lot, right? God always wins. God isn't in a battle, you guys. That's a whole other subject. The white hats, the secret soldiers, all of these saviors that we're told are working, and they're gonna all pop out of the woodwork one day, and everything's gonna be fine, and we're all gonna be in the new earth, and it's all gonna be great. What is the one thing that all of these narratives have in common? Everything I've shared with you here today, what is the one thing that they all have in common? This is what I want you to pay attention to. What they all have in common is that according to these narratives, we are not the driving force behind our ascension. We are the people who are waiting for it to happen. We are the people who believe something else does it to us. And unless we reposition ourselves into the revelation that we ourselves are the driving force of our own ascension process, we're going to be stuck forever and ever and ever in the same miserable cycles on planet Earth that just repeat themselves over and over and over and over again. War, poverty, controllers in charge in one form or another who do nothing but devastation and destruction, poverty, starvation, civilizations collapsing. We're just going to keep living through the same thing, century after century, millennium after millennium, era after era. We're stuck. Can you guys see that we are stuck? And I'm not even talking about AI. Let's just put AI aside. Let's just talk about the human aspect here and the repetitive patterns that humanity continues to find itself in. And you would think by now, after the continuous failure of these saviors and this thing that's supposed to do this thing to us, the failure of this to ever materialize would be the one thing that would finally get people to wake up. Because what is the stuckness all about? Why is humanity so freaking stuck and not really evolving at all as a collective? Because we still believe that we are not the driving force in our own evolution. We still believe that we are very diminished as beings. We're very guilty. We're very powerless. We're victims. We have all these disempowering beliefs. And by the time you've absorbed these disempowering beliefs, you don't have the energetic wherewithal or the consciousness needed to truly understand and embark on ascension. And then here's what this leads to for those of us, and there are many of us, there are millions of us who are genuinely spiritually oriented and at a level of higher consciousness and seek to experience a higher level of consciousness and truly want to evolve. But as long as we continue to orient ourselves in these types of narratives, many of us are going to continue feeling depressed, feeling confused, feeling anxious, and in many cases, and a lot of people are saying this more and more, why am I even here? How did I end up here? I don't want to be here. This is terrible. This must have been a mistake. All that kind of negative stuff, right? And none of that is going to change until we shift our paradigm about ascension. Until we accept the fundamental reality that none of this stuff has ever actually materialized in the way that it has been described to us. It's never happened. Why would we suddenly think now that it's going to happen today or tomorrow or next week or next year? We don't even have any evidence historically that this is real. Now, before I go on, I want to share with you why I would say that the saviors that are supposed to come from the outside and rescue us or save us in some way, here's what to me is the proof that that could not possibly be real. If it were real, you would have to conclude that these saviors are in no way benevolent entities. Because if it were true, which it's not in my opinion, but if it were true, you could only conclude that they're very mean, kind of sadistic entities. Why do I say that? Because if it were true, it would mean that they're perfectly fine watching us suffer and die as a collective. That they just wait around and they watch us and they observe us and they see all of this terribleness happening, but they don't lift a finger to do anything about it. And then we continue to sit here and believe that someday they will emerge and they'll do this amazing, miraculous thing and everything will be beautiful and everything will be wonderful and the bad guys will be squashed and we'll be saved and whatever is the version. At what point do we wake up? You know, everybody wants to wake up about how bad the controllers are, right? That's easy waking up. I'm talking about a deeper level of waking up where you finally admit to yourself that you cannot rely on this type of narrative anymore because you can't go forward. You cannot evolve and ascend. If you are meant to be the driving force of your own ascension, which you are, which we all are, you will never be able to have enough consolidated energy of your own to make that forward movement in this universe if you have displaced your belief in that driving force to be something outside of yourself. Because now you're weak. Now you're just deflated. Now you've given your power away to a narrative that has no evidence of any kind. You've given all your power away. You're saying that thing, that invisible something over there, whatever that something is, maybe it's some force that's going to make everything ascend. Whatever that something is, that's where you put your power. What have you got left? You don't have enough to move forward. So when everyone is doing this, or let's say the majority of people on earth are doing this, what you end up with is what I will call spiritual anarchy. What is anarchy exactly? Anarchy occurs when certain laws are not followed and it's just a big free-for-all. Now, spiritual anarchy is not the same as spiritual freedom. Spiritual freedom occurs when people can be trusted to stay in alignment with the laws and principles of the natural universe and with the laws and principles of evolution. That's when you have spiritual freedom. That's when your journey can unfold in a way that is unique and perfect for you. Spiritual anarchy, on the other hand, isn't interested in the true laws and principles of the universe and would rather rely on narratives and rhetorics where somebody else is in charge, someone else is in control, you're not, you just have to be judged correctly in order to be saved, etc., etc. That's when you get spiritual anarchy, because the laws that are being broken are fundamental laws of this universe and how evolution and ascension actually works. So, true ascension is aligned with the natural laws and principles of the entire universe. And when I say that we are each meant to be the driving force in our own ascension, I do not mean that from some sort of an egoic place or like, well, you're on your own, you better figure out how to ascend because it's all up to you. I don't mean that, you guys, okay? Once you align with simple but very powerful, irrevocable laws and principles of the natural world and the natural universe, you are so supported. Because coming into alignment, coming into coherence with how the universe actually works, you're surrounded by support. It's very powerful. Let me just give you a quick view of what that looks like. Each of us is a manifestation of omnipresent infinite love. That is who we are. We are a manifestation of the source that creates all things. I mean, isn't that obvious when you think about it? The source that creates all that is, the creator of all that is, infinite love, is not separate from its creation. It's not the observer, the separated observer of its creation and judging how well it's doing. That's a very human concept. That's a very low vibrational, low level of consciousness view of life. But that which created the entire universe and creates the entire universe, because not a past thing, it's a now thing, is at one with its creation. And I can't go into all the details here, obviously, or we'd be here for hours and hours. So I'm going to just give you the simplest description of it. See, we're not creating ourselves, are we? We can create how we manifest, but we're not creating our own existence. That is coming from a higher source. And that source is at one with us, and that source desires for everything that exists to be in a state of perfect love. Perfect, infinite love. And for anything that is human to function as a creator, because we are the extension of that creative force that creates all that is. That's why we have the capabilities we have. That's why we're so multidimensional and interdimensional. So the first thing is to come into alignment with that truth. Then you can look at, well, let me talk about it this way. And you've probably heard me say this before if you've been following me. Our universe is in the process of healing from duality, of restoring itself back into its original state of oneness and wholeness, where there is no such thing as duality, because duality is a flawed occurrence. So the entire universe, which is a manifestation of Source, God, all that is, infinite love, is right now moving in the most gargantuan of ways, not at our human speed, but speed, we don't even understand it because it's not even in time as we understand time. But this gargantuan, massive, beautiful energy, consciousness, and life is evolving and healing and moving out of this ridiculous state of duality to become one again, to become whole. When we align with that principle, we become a part of that evolving, massive consciousness that is way beyond our capacity to understand from where we sit on planet Earth. So our role is to align with that. That's the beginning that we need. That's why I wanted to go through presenting you with an opportunity to examine all of that mythology that surrounds Ascension, so you can have an opportunity to decide what you want to do about it in your own life. Now, let me come back for a moment to what I shared with you at the beginning of this video with that interesting little interlude I had with Archangel Michael way back when he said, "Why would you be any different here than you are in the rest of the universe?" Maybe you can start to get a sense of where he was coming from with that rhetorical question. Because where I was coming from in my response was a place of total separation from that reality. And that's why, and I was actually taking a stand on my separated state and saying to him, well, you don't understand. Things are different here. I mean, I literally thought my position was legitimate. I really did. And it's so beautiful that they never they don't confront people on this kind of thing. They just give you the space to, you'll figure it out, you'll learn, kind of thing, very lovingly, just like, okay, that's where you're at, that's fine. So, yeah, I was taking a stand as though this separated state was just the way it is, and this is why I am the way I am, and you don't understand because you're not here. That's crazy, right? So now I'm beginning to know the reality of what he was suggesting. Like, this is not a position from which to evolve, right? You can't take a stand on the conditions of planet Earth, the massive condition of duality and separation from the actual truth of the universe itself, and expect to really go anywhere. And at the time, I was seeing my role as, well, I'm the channel, and communication comes through me, and that was great. I mean, that's fine because that's my purpose here. But he was offering something more to me. He was offering to me to give it a little deeper thought about your presence here, right? So I wanted to share that little bit with you about alignment with the reality that we are a part of a massive gargantuan universe that is evolving as well. So you would know that we're not alone. We are so supported. It is like ridiculous how much support we have when we align with that truth. So what do we need to embark on ascension from where we sit right now on this planet? Well, there are two main things that we need. One, we need clear awareness of the planetary situation. We need to be aware of the conditions here. We need to be aware of where we actually are and not allow ourselves to become delusional because of all the stuff being thrown at us about what reality supposedly is. So we want to have clear awareness of our situation. And secondly, the second thing we need is we need to understand at least the basics of how ascension works and what it actually means. If we have those two things, we can at least get on a path that is viable. So it could be very wise, if you want to entertain this idea, to give up the belief that ascension is about being chosen, it's about being judged, about being one of the good guys as opposed to the bad guys, that whole thing, because guess what that really is? That is just another symptom of punishment and reward. Do you see that? Reward is you get chosen, you go to the new earth, or you go to heaven, or you get saved. Punishment is you're bad, you don't measure up, you end up on the old earth, you end up in hell, you end up in a bad place. It's the same thing. It's the same problem. And so much of this stuff can just be distilled down to that one simple thing, just another system of punishment and reward. So we want to step away from that duality, step into the truth of what ascension is, that we are the driving force. Now, why do I say that we individually are the driving force in our own ascension? Because when you come into alignment with the truth that each one of us is a manifestation of that source of all that is, then what do you think is that driving force? It's a force that moves through us, that in a way is us, meaning that it is manifesting as us. And when we come into alignment with that power, with that love, with that immense, infinite presence, we can be more surrendered to actual ascension and how it really works. Because in duality, we haven't got a clue. Even though we live in duality, it doesn't mean we have to come from that place. And I wanted to share that little exchange I had with Archangel Michael because that was so illustrative of what it looks like when you come from duality, which is what I was doing at the time. When you come from that place, you're like, well, I can't because of how it is here. You see what I mean? I don't do that anymore. I'm not in that place anymore. I'm not going to justify the situation here for myself. So just like everything else in nature, true ascension is a process. It doesn't happen suddenly. I mean, look at the sun. Can you imagine? I like the sun. It's a great example. Can you imagine if 1 minute it's dark outside, it's night, and all of a sudden the sun pops up and it's high noon and it's like, bang, there it is, noon, and everything's lit up with the sunlight. That would be so weird, wouldn't it? That would be bizarre. I don't even think we'd think that was beautiful. I think we'd think that was like frightening or terrifying, right? But the way we experience the sunrise into the sunset, which is actually not the sun moving, it's the earth moving. We all know that, right? But the way we experience it is so beautiful. It's a process. It's a cycle. So ascension is like that. It's one of the cycles in nature. True ascension is driven from within. It's not coming from the outside. It's a function of alignment with reality. Alignment with reality that is not duality. It's actually about becoming fully present on all levels of being human. So now I want to talk to you about ascension at a much, much higher level, at a cosmic level. The ascension that I refer to as being a process that is not limited to any one finite lifetime. And I emphasize the word finite, beginning and end, birth and death, not limited there. So our first positioning needs to be that we are infinite beings on an infinite journey that does not end. That we go on forever because the source that creates us goes on forever. So now let's go back for a moment, because I've already cleared out all the mythology about ascension, right? So now let's talk realistically about what's the next thing that needs to be cleared out. What do we need to get clear out so we can really know what ascension actually is at a much, much higher level of being? The next thing we need to clear out is all the stuff that we identify as being who we are in this particular lifetime. That's a challenge, right? All the patterns, all the beliefs, all the traumas, all that stuff that impedes our ascension. So we need to transmute those frequencies, transmute that energy, transmute it, because it's all in the form of energy, right? You know how we know it's in the form of energy? Because otherwise it'd be like you'd be carrying suitcases full of stuff, actual physical suitcases, a backpack. You'd probably need a mule to drag the rest of the stuff that you're carrying around with you. You'd have all these physical containers that would be filled with all the stuff you've collected over the course of your lifetime. We don't have that, right? Therefore, we know it's in the form of energy. All the stuff we're carrying is in the form of energy. We run into trouble when we think that stuff is who we are. We run into trouble when we think that what we've been through in this lifetime is who we are. Even in a simple way, we run into trouble when we believe that our profession is who we are. You know, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a landscape artist, I'm a painter, I'm whatever. And we think that's who we are. We identify, this is me. No, it's not you, it's what you do, but it's not who you are. Those are two very different things. But when we think it's who we are, we become identified with it and we become stuck when it comes to ascension. So it's not about stopping doing anything. It's more about how you're positioned from within yourself. So we need to get free of all these patterns and traumas and identifications and all this stuff. And that's challenging, right? But it could be easier if you know why you need to do it, if you know what is on the other side of that. So let's talk about that really quickly here so you have a clearer understanding of the reason for that. So let's say, for example, that you succeed in just clearing a whole bunch of junk, transmuting a whole bunch of stuff you've been carrying around, and you will notice the more you clear, the lighter you feel, because you're actually light. And you experience yourself as light more and more because more stuff gets transmuted, more stuff goes away from your energy field. You feel more like who you really are. But then you notice at some point, this is what I've been noticing lately, at some point you notice, okay, so I'm here in a human body. I now understand the dynamics of how all of this energy gets acquired, accumulated, identified with. I understand that. I'm starting to see through it. I'm starting to see the path that we're really meant to be on, and it's not the path of all that stuff. So I'm going to share with you right now the bigger picture of what ascension really looks like. It's not going up in the sky. It's not going to a new earth. It's none of those things. And probably what I'm going to share with you, you may not relate to at all. And that's okay. But I'm going to share it anyway. We have an earth-based physical human body. We have a number of issues and problems with these bodies. Now, this is beyond what I was saying earlier about the patterns and, all that junk that we carry around. Let's pretend that all that stuff's cleared out. And we're left with a particular kind of human manifestation. One that actually doesn't work. One that I think has been tampered with, has not been, I don't know how to say this. Well, let me just tell you what's wrong with it. Let me tell you one thing that's wrong with it. And it's clear there was some monkeying around with our genetics. The fact that we have this reptilian brain that is based in fear and survival, that is why we are so easily manipulated by the controllers. Remember, I shared this with you guys, I think maybe last week, I shared this. When the controllers keep us in fear on purpose, because that shoves us into that back portion of our brain that's fear-based, survival-based. It shuts down the more intelligent part of our brain, so we can't even think straight anymore. We just become very reactive. Our energy implodes. We can go into paralysis, anxiety, all kinds of bad stuff. We make bad decisions. We're easily manipulated, all that stuff, right? So we have something going on. Our brain is kind of like a Frankenstein brain. There are pieces of it that don't make sense. How powerful do we need to be to correct this? Because now you're talking about serious transmutation. I can't say if that's going to happen in the current lifetime we're all in. I don't know. But I can tell you for a fact that this is our journey. This is the real journey we're meant to be on. We are meant to correct a lot of things that are wrong with these physical embodiments. We're not just meant to ascend into a higher level of consciousness. We are meant to get ourselves into a position where we have so much power available to us via the source of all that is, via the gargantuan evolving universe, that we become capable of making certain necessary corrections that we must make at some point in these journeys. At some point, think of it as an ongoing cosmic journey that is not confined to where you are right now. It's much bigger than that. We need to have full, absolute command over every cell, every molecule, every atom, every single particle of matter that we call these bodies. That's where we need to be. That is the truth about ascension. And that is the journey we're all on. So we're going pretty slow in that journey, and that's fine. The problem with going slow at a time like this, in our earthly situation here, the problem is that, well, let me just give it to you in a matter of simple physics. If you throw a ball, that ball has a certain trajectory, right? And you can see the ball's going somewhere, and it's going to stay on that trajectory unless something interacts with it before it reaches its destination and throws it off course, right? That's where we're at right now with AI. We've been on a trajectory that has been available to us to continue evolving onto an ascension path where we come into the fullest of possible power that I described to you. And that's still not the end of our journey. That's just the next phase. Where we come into that level of empowerment, we've been on that path Cycle after cycle, eon after eon, civilization after civilization, lifetime after lifetime. However, what's happening now, AI is like another force coming in to throw us in a completely different direction. And that is the meaning of the timeline split, my friends. So the timeline was the timeline that could go on for as long as we wanted it to go on, of us still believing a bunch of stuff that doesn't work, the same old thing. We could just go round and round and round on planet Earth, a gazillion lifetimes on that same timeline, and eventually maybe find our way out. But the timeline split is really about AI acting as a force. It's a force that acts upon us on that timeline and throws us into a different timeline, meaning a different trajectory, a different direction. Just like if you see a ball coming towards you, you know its trajectory, and you hit it and you send it in a different direction. That's all a timeline split really is. So here's what our most important task is right now. And also bear in mind that the subject of AI, the AI and the controllers are working together. It's just one major agenda. And you probably know that from stuff we've talked about previously here. But our major task right now is this. We want to make sure that we at least stay on that original trajectory of moving in an aligned way, a way that's aligned with nature and the universe, toward real ascension, so that we don't get thrown off into another, a completely different direction that could take billions and trillions of years to recover from. Who knows? You can't really talk about time in the sense that we understand time when you're talking about the larger universe. It just doesn't work. But let's just say we don't want to go that route, you guys. That's just not a good way to go. So how do we do that? How do we maintain our path of ascension? How do we maintain that? Well, the best way to do something when the situation is so big and vast like what we're going through right now on this planet is to keep it very simple. Because when you keep it simple, you can maintain focus. You can maintain clarity and not get confused. So the first thing we want to do is we want to always be working to be authentic, to be living from our sincerest of sincere hearts. Sincerity, my friends, is a beautiful thing because sincerity is when you are in perfect alignment with your heart. So we want to be living from a sincere place and be as authentic as we can be. Challenge our patterns and junk that we're carrying around. See if we can just get rid of that stuff. We don't need it. It's not who we are. Get clear about what is really authentically you and support yourself in that way. That's the first thing. Authenticity means alignment with the truth of who you really are. And then you allow yourself to express from that place. The second thing you want to do is take excellent care of your physical body. Don't dismiss it. Don't take it for granted. Don't just say, oh, it doesn't matter. I'm just here to work. Give it the support it needs to thrive as best you can. And the third thing would be to live with purpose. Live a purposeful life. Instead of, the mundane experience of just living by the same old routines day in and day out, letting your routines carry you through your day, your week, your month, your year. Procrastinating, telling yourself, well, I'll do such and such. I'll follow my dreams when I feel more like it or when I'm ready or whatever. And following your dreams is a good idea because what do we mean when we say follow your dream? Follow your heart. We're talking about an inspired state of being. Whatever you are inspired to do is probably coming from your higher self. Follow that inspiration. Come into alignment. Bring your life into alignment so that you can live from that place. So as you can see, there's many things that we can do right now the most important thing is to maintain that ascension path. That's the number one most important thing. And another thing I'll just add, if you go through periods of feeling fearful or a lot of anxiety or discouragement as a result of being fearful and anxious or whatever it is, realize that's your brain reacting to the events. You don't have to track with that fear. You don't have to let your consciousness track with that fear. You can look at it and recognize it, but you don't have to be a part of it. Find ways to calm yourself. Find ways to calm your nervous system. Remember who you really are. Remember the journey you're actually on. Just restore your focus again. Reset your focus. Always reset your focus to the recognition that you are on a cosmic journey. You're not on just an earthly journey. It's not just about this one lifetime. It's about going to the next level. It's about an upward movement instead of just the same old thing. So I think that's enough for this video. On Tuesday, I'm either going to post a new video or I'm going to post a message in the community that tells you maybe it'll be another week, because sometimes I feel like I'm giving you guys so much to digest and take in. Sometimes I think it's good to have a week in between and not produce a video that week, just so you can kind of digest what I'm saying. And if you ever see that, you can always check on Tuesday in the community. If you're not sure if I'm going to post a video, just go to the community section of my channel and I will put a post there and let you know when, if it's not that day, it's either going to be a post that the video is on that day or it's going to be the following week or something like that. So always go to the community if you want to know for sure when the next video will be posted. Right now, I'm only posting on Tuesdays. And remember to check those 2 links in the description for the HEALY quantum frequency device and also for my Cosmic Journey membership opening and the wait list. Check those links if you want some additional assistance in your journey. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it out with anyone else who you feel would appreciate some of the things I've shared with you here. And be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because, as I said, I'm here on Tuesdays with all new videos. And with that, my dearest friends, I'm sending you so much love, light, and high vibrational energy. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Namaste.